Hi everyone. So my presentation today is on an article written by Barack Obama uh, called "How to Make This Moment the Turning Point for Real Change." So Barack Obama is writing this article really in response to the um, racial justice protests that occurred um, primarily in 2020, um, fueled by the murder of George Floyd. And he's recognizing that there's all of this um, really like encouraging um, motivation or drive to change society. Like people are recognizing that there is a problem, and we need to do something about it. And so his article is really trying to answer the question, how can we actually make lasting positive change, um, as far as um, making a society in which um, there's equal justice, regardless of um, ethnic background or what you look like. Um, and kind of his overarching the overarching idea expressed in the article, or kind of the answer to this question um, for him, is that equal justice can be achieved by looking at past activists, activists in American history that have been able to make constructive, lasting changes in our society. Um, so his three main points is: one, activists should be ethical; two, that protests should translate into political action; and three, that demands made to elected officials should be specific. So on his first point, that activists should be ethical, he says, quote, "If we want our criminal justice system and American society at large to operate on a higher ethical code, then we have to model that code ourselves." So basically he's saying that activists should lead by example here in terms of ethical behavior. And I think this is supported not only by like the history of activism, but I think this approach also makes sense in light of the fact that um, in other areas of life we often um, model our behavior off of the example of others, whether that's on social media, people we see on social media, or for example, in the parent-child relationship, in general, if um, a kid is gonna maybe be more resistant to changing their behavior, if the parent says, do this or don't do that, but if the parent is actually modeling that behavior, um, the kid is more likely to just naturally um, follow suit. Um, in terms of what he means specifically by ethical, he gives the example of being peaceful rather than violent. Um, and what I would add to that, and I think you would agree with this, is that um, activism shouldn't infringe on this free speech of others as well. And also, another point is that peaceful protest can mean many different things, not only going to marches or using social media, but also peaceful protest is expressed through various forms of art and writing, as well as expressing opinions via radio or podcasts. And you can see on my slide 2 murals from Oakland, California, in the East Bay, that I think are examples of great ways to peacefully protest. The one on the left says "seize the time," and I think it really captures the motivation behind Barack Obama's article. We don't want to waste the time that we have. It's important to use what power we do have for positive influence. The second mural on the right has has this, my interpretation at least, is that it's calling us to imagine a world in which people of a variety of backgrounds, people who look different, can be treated fairly and can live together in peace. Can care for one another. It's calling us, I think, to first imagine a world in which that's the case, to have a vision for the future. Barack Obama's second point is, not only should we have these peaceful protests, but these peaceful protests should lead to political action. And I think this is really important because, partly because voting is just another avenue for people to participate in changing society for the better. I think not everyone necessarily wants to or is able to spend their time marching, or maybe they're not into art or writing, but they're more than willing to vote in a way that will make positive change in the privacy of their own homes. And I think voting is fairly doable, I think, for most people, and it's a win-win situation. So Barack Obama also makes the point that demands to elected officials should be specific. And this kind of reminded me of, the this reminded me of like a classroom setting where people you're more likely to be well, in general, you're more likely to do what's necessary to succeed in the class if the teacher is very specific with what the expectations are. And Barack Obama actually makes a point too that another reason why being specific in demands to political figures is important is that not everyone will want to pass laws that produce these positive changes, and so by making demand specific, it's a lot harder for politicians to kind of weasel their way out of actually making laws that are constructive. In conclusion, Barack Obama ends on really a hopeful note. He wants us to, remember that, even though it can be really discouraging and disheartening to see, all of these, horrible, events occur, injustices in society, particularly around police violence. We should be encouraged that there's a real drive, for making a society in which those things are a lot more rare, or hopefully eventually non-existent. And I would just add to that already there have been some real changes that have occurred. According to the Wilson Center for Science and Justice, from 2018 to 2022, 600 laws have been passed at the state level, related to police reform. For example, 72 of those laws related to the force that police are allowed to use. And 27 of those laws are related to behavioral health. So, the behavioral health of officers, and also, the training of and responses by police. My concluding question for you all is, in your opinion, given that the voter turnout among college-age Americans is fairly low, what are some effective ways to encourage a higher voter turnout among college-age Americans? Thank you.